Fleet Commander Torvan stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and watched the stars through the great viewing window. His ship was the pride of the Valari Empire. It stretched for 3 kilometers from front to back. Its weapons could destroy moons. Its shields could survive the heart of a dying star. For 12,000 years, the Valari had ruled the galaxy with ships like this one. Nothing could challenge them. Nothing ever had. "Commander," said Science Officer Melith from her station. Her voice carried a strange note that Torvan had never heard before. It sounded like confusion mixed with fear. "We are detecting something unusual." Torvan turned to face her. Melith was old for a Valari, nearly 400 years. She had served on warships since before Torvan's grandfather was born. In all that time, she had never sounded afraid. "Explain," Torvan commanded. "Our sensors have found a ship." Melith's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as she studied her screens. "But that is not the unusual part. The unusual part is how it arrived. How did it arrive?" "I do not know." Melith touched her controls with shaking fingers. "It did not use hyperspace tunnels. It did not use fold drives. It did not use any method of travel that exists in our records. It simply appeared." Torvan walked to her station and looked at the data himself. The readings made no sense. One moment, the space ahead was empty. The next moment, a ship was there. No energy signature. No transition wave. Nothing. "Show me this ship," Torvan ordered. The main screen changed to display the vessel. Torvan felt his stomach twist with disgust. The ship was ugly. It was small, perhaps 200 meters long. Its hull was gray and plain. It had no elegant curves like Valari ships. It looked like something a primitive species might build in their first century of space travel. "What species does this ship belong to?" Torvan asked. "Unknown," Melith replied. "We have no records of this design." "But Commander, there is more. I am detecting life signs aboard. They are unusual." "Unusual how?" "The beings appear to be carbon-based. 2 arms, 2 legs. They breathe oxygen and nitrogen. Their body temperature is high, nearly 37 degrees. Their hearts beat very fast, more than 60 times per minute." Torvan laughed. "They sound like prey animals. Weak little creatures running on fast heartbeats." He returned to his command chair. "Open communications. Let us speak to these visitors." The communications officer worked his controls. A moment later, a face appeared on the screen. Torvan leaned forward with surprise. The being looked soft. It had no scales, no shell, no protective plates. Its skin was pale and smooth like a newborn Valari. It had only 2 eyes, and they were small and round. Hair grew from the top of its head in black strands. When it spoke, its voice was calm and steady. "This is Captain Park Deho of the human vessel Wanderer. We greet you in peace." Torvan studied this human carefully. The creature showed no fear. It sat in its captain's chair with relaxed shoulders and a slight smile on its face. Behind it, Torvan could see other humans working at their stations. They all looked equally calm. "I am Fleet Commander Torvan of the Valari Empire," he announced. "You have entered our territory without permission. You will explain how you arrived here." The human named Park Deho tilted his head slightly. "We traveled here using our standard drive system. I apologize if we caused alarm. We did not mean to enter your space without notice." "Your standard drive system?" Torvan pressed forward in his chair. "What kind of drive?" "Explain it to me." "I am afraid that information is not mine to share," the human replied. His smile remained unchanged. "Perhaps we could discuss this through proper diplomatic channels?" Torvan felt anger rising in his chest. No species spoke to the Valari this way. No species refused to answer their questions. The Valari Empire controlled 100,000 star systems. They had conquered every race they ever encountered. Who were these soft, fragile creatures to deny him? "I am not asking," Torvald said coldly. "I am commanding. You will tell me about your technology, or I will take your ship apart piece by piece until I understand it myself." The human captain's expression did not change. "Commander Torvald, I understand that we are strangers to you, but I must respectfully decline your command. We mean you no harm. We would prefer friendship to conflict." "Scan their ship," Torvald ordered Melith. "Find out everything about their technology." Melith activated the deep scanners. These devices could analyze any material, any energy source, any machine in existence. The Valari had perfected them over thousands of years. The scanners reached toward the human ship. Then something impossible happened. "Commander," Melith whispered, "the scanners are failing." "Failing? That is not possible." "I know." Melith's hands trembled as she worked. "The readings are contradicting themselves. The ship appears to be made of normal metal, but also it appears to be made of nothing at all. Its mass is 100,000 tons, but also its mass is 0. The ship is here, but the scanners say it is also not here." Torvald stood up. "That makes no sense." "I know," Melith repeated. "Commander, I have been a science officer for 300 years. I have never seen anything like this. Our understanding of physics says this ship cannot exist, but it does exist. I am looking at it." On the screen, Captain Park Daeho watched them with patient eyes. He seemed to know exactly what was happening. He seemed to have expected it. "Enough," Torvald declared. "We will capture that ship and study it properly. All vessels move to surround the human craft. Prepare capture fields." The 12 warships under Torvald's command began to move. They spread out in a perfect circle around the Wanderer. Their weapons powered up, their shields activated. Any normal ship would be trapped completely. The human captain spoke again. "Commander Torvald, I strongly suggest you reconsider this action." "I do not take suggestions from primitives," Torvald replied. "Activate capture fields." Energy beams shot out from all 12 ships. They formed a net of power around the Wanderer. This net could hold a vessel 10 times its size. Nothing could escape once caught. But the human ship did not get caught. It flickered. That was the only way to describe what Torvald saw. The ship flickered like a candle flame in a slight wind. And then it was not inside the net anymore. "Where is it?" Torvald shouted. "Find that ship." "Commander," said the sensor officer, his voice breaking with shock. "The human vessel is now behind us, behind the entire fleet." It moved instantly across 50,000 kilometers. Torvald spun around and looked through the rear viewing ports. There it was. The small, ugly, impossible ship hung in space behind them all. It had not flown through the gap in their formation. It had not accelerated to incredible speed. It had simply appeared in a new location, as if the old location had never mattered. The communication screen showed Captain Park Daeho again. The human's expression was sad now, not angry. "Commander Torvald," he said gently, "we truly do not want conflict. But you cannot capture us. You cannot catch us. Your understanding of physics tells you this is impossible. But we are here anyway. Please, let us talk instead of fight." Torvald stared at the screen. His heart pounded in his chest. For the first time in his long career, he felt something cold creeping through his body. It was fear. The Valari Empire had ruled the galaxy because they understood the universe better than anyone else. They had mapped every law of physics. They had mastered every force of nature. Their power came from knowledge. But these humans had done something that should not be possible. They had broken the rules that the entire empire was built upon. Torvan sat back down in his chair. His crew watched him with frightened eyes. They were waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? How do you fight something that ignores the laws of reality? Open a channel to High Command, Torvan said quietly. Tell them we have encountered something unexpected. On the screen, Captain Park Daeho nodded slightly, as if he had known all along that this would happen. The human ship hung peacefully in space, waiting, while the greatest fleet in the galaxy floated helplessly before it. The Empire had stood for 12,000 years. Now it trembled. The Grand Chamber of the Valari High Council was the largest room in the Empire. It could hold 10,000 people. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Golden light poured down from crystal windows. Every surface was carved with the names of conquered species, a record of 12,000 years of victory. Today, the chamber felt small. High Sovereign Kelveth sat on his throne at the center of the room. He was old, nearly 700 years, and his scales had faded from bright blue to soft gray. He had ruled the empire for 3 centuries. He had seen wars and plagues and disasters. He had never seen his counselors this afraid. Play the recording again, Counselor Dren demanded. He was a military leader, tall and strong, with deep green scales and scars across his face. I want to see it one more time. The recording played on the great screen above them. They watched Commander Torvan's ship surround the human vessel. They watched the capture fields activate. They watched the human ship flicker and disappear, and reappear behind the fleet as if distance meant nothing. The room was silent when it ended. This is a trick, Dren said firmly. Some kind of illusion or sensor manipulation. No ship can move like that. I agree that no ship should be able to move like that, said Counselor Sivan. She was old and thin, a scholar who had spent her life studying the physics of space travel. But the readings are clear. That ship did not fly to its new position. It did not accelerate. It simply existed in one place, and then it existed in another, as if the space between did not matter. That is impossible, Dren insisted. Yes, Sivan agreed. And yet it happened. High Sovereign Kelveth raised one hand. The room fell silent. His voice was soft and rough with age, but it carried to every corner. We have spent 12,000 years conquering this galaxy, he said slowly. We did so because we understood the universe better than anyone else. We mapped the laws of physics. We mastered every force of nature. Every species we met was using technology we had already surpassed. He paused. These humans are different. They are primitives, Dren argued. Look at their ship. It is ugly. It is small. They have no shields that we can detect, no weapons we can identify. And yet our scanners could not read their vessel, Sivan pointed out. Our capture fields could not hold them. They move in ways we cannot explain. Before anyone could respond, the great doors of the chamber opened. A figure walked in, escorted by 4 Valari guards. The counselors turned to stare. The human was smaller than any Valari. She stood barely 2 meters tall where most Valari reached 3. Her skin was brown and smooth, without scales or armor. Her hair was black and gray, pulled back from her face. She wore simple clothing in dark blue. She carried nothing that looked like a weapon. She walked with perfect confidence, as if the 10,000 Valari watching her meant nothing at all. I am Admiral Yoon-ji Young, she announced when she reached the center of the room. Her voice was clear and calm. I come as humanity's representative. I bring messages of peace. Counselor Dren stepped forward. You have invaded our territory. You have humiliated our fleet. And now you speak of peace? Admiral Yoon looked at him without fear. We did not invade. We traveled through your space because we did not know it was yours. We did not humiliate your fleet. We simply refused to be captured. There's a difference. You will tell us about your technology, Dren demanded. How does your ship move the way it does? What power source do you use? How have you broken the laws of physics? We have not broken any laws, Admiral Yoon replied. We have simply discovered laws that you did not know existed. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Counselors shouted at each other. Some demanded the human be arrested. Others called for an immediate attack on human space. High Sovereign Kelvith let them argue for several minutes before raising his hand again. Admiral Yoon, he said when silence returned. I will ask you directly. Why have you come here? What do humans want? The human woman turned to face him. For a moment, she studied his ancient face with those strange, small eyes. We want what all living beings want, she said. We want to survive. We want to grow. We want to learn about the universe and our place in it. She paused. We know that the Valari Empire is powerful. We know you have conquered many species. We do not want to be your enemies. We want to be your friends. Friends? Dren laughed harshly. The Valari do not need friends. We have subjects. We have conquered peoples. We have servants. But we do not have friends. Perhaps that could change, Admiral Yoon suggested. Tell us about your drive technology, Counselor Sivan interrupted. She leaned forward with genuine curiosity in her eyes. Please, I am a scientist. I have devoted my life to understanding the universe. What you have shown us, it should be impossible. I need to understand. Admiral Yoon was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. The truth is, we do not fully understand it ourselves. She saw the disbelief on their faces and continued. Humanity is young compared to your species. We have only been traveling between stars for 2 centuries. Before that, we were trapped on a single planet, slowly killing it with our own pollution and waste. Then how did you develop this technology? Sivan asked. We were desperate, Admiral Yoon explained. Our planet was dying. Our climate was failing. We tried everything to save ourselves. Thousands of experiments. Millions of tests. Most failed. But one worked. She spread her hands. We still do not know exactly why. We have theories. We have mathematics that seem to describe what happens. But the full truth? The complete understanding? We do not have it yet. You expect us to believe that you created the most advanced technology in the galaxy by accident? Dren's voice was heavy with scorn. I expect you to believe the truth, Admiral Yoon replied. Believe it or not as you choose. But it is the truth. Dren turned to High Sovereign Kelvith. This is obviously a lie. They are hiding their secrets, protecting their advantage. We should capture their ships and take their technology by force. You tried that already, Admiral Yoon said quietly. It did not work. Dren's scales flushed dark with anger. Then we will try harder. We will send 1,000 ships. 10,000 ships. We will crush you with the full weight of the Empire. Admiral Yoon looked at him with something that might have been pity. Counselor, I do not say this as a threat. I say it as a warning from one living being to another. Every species that has tried to take from humans by force has learned the same lesson. We do not conquer. We do not seek power over others. But we do not surrender. We do not give up. We do not stop. Is that a threat? Dren stepped closer to her. It is a fact. Admiral Yoon did not step back. We survived when our own planet tried to kill us. We survived plagues that killed billions. We survived wars that nearly ended our species. We are still here. We will still be here when the last star burns out. Her eyes met his. Think carefully before you make enemies of us." The chamber was absolutely silent. Every Velari in the room stared at this small, soft creature who spoke to them without fear. High Sovereign Kelvith finally broke the silence. "What do you propose, Admiral?" "I propose that we talk," she said simply. "We share information. We trade fairly. We learn from each other. Your empire has 12,000 years of knowledge and history. We have new ways of seeing the universe. Together, we could achieve things that neither of us could achieve alone." Dren shook his head. "I propose something different. I propose that we assemble the largest fleet in the history of the Empire. I propose that we find the human homeworld. And I propose that we teach these creatures their place in the galaxy." Kelvith looked between them. The humans stood calmly, waiting. Dren stood rigidly, demanding action. "We will vote," Kelvith announced. "All who support Councillor Dren's proposal, speak now." Voices called out across the chamber. More than half the councillors supported war. And those who support the humans' proposal? Fewer voices. Much fewer. Kelvith nodded slowly. "Then it is decided. We will prepare for military action. Admiral Yoon, you are free to return to your people. Tell them what is coming." Admiral Yoon bowed her head slightly. "I understand." She turned to leave, then paused and looked back. "High Sovereign, may I offer one final thought?" Kelvith gestured for her to continue. "Every species that has tried to take from us by force learned the same lesson," she repeated. "But the lesson was never that humans are dangerous. The lesson was that force is never the answer." Her sad eyes swept across the chamber. "I hope you learn it more gently than the others did." She walked out through the great doors. The councillors watched her go in silence. High Sovereign Kelvith sat back on his throne. His old heart beat heavily in his chest. He had ruled for 300 years. He had always known what to do. Now, for the first time, he was not sure. The Charon Nebula was a beautiful place. Clouds of purple and gold gas stretched across millions of kilometers. Young stars burned inside, casting light in every direction. Ancient species had once worshipped this place as the birthplace of gods. Now it was a trap. Fleet Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. He had assembled 2,000 warships, the largest fleet in 4 centuries. Every vessel was armed with the best weapons the Empire could build. Every crew was trained for battle. "The humans would die here today." "Report," Vorath commanded. "All ships in position," his officer replied. "The nebula is blocking their sensors. They will not see us until it is too late." "And the human convoy?" "Approaching on schedule. 5 vessels. 4 cargo ships and 1 small escort." Vorath laughed. 1 escort ship against 2,000 warships. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both. Far away, on the bridge of the escort vessel Silver Dawn, Commander Bae Su-min watched the nebula grow larger on her screen. She was a small woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She had served in humanity's small fleet for 30 years. She had seen many things. She had never been afraid. "Commander," said Lieutenant Han the-jun from his tactical station. He was young, barely 25, with quick hands and a quicker mind. "I am detecting unusual energy patterns inside the nebula." Bae nodded slowly. "How many ships?" "At least 2,000. The bridge fell silent. The crew looked at their commander with worried eyes. 5 ships against 2,000. The numbers were impossible. "They have set a trap," Bae said calmly. "They expect us to run. Should we not run?" asked Chief Engineer Choi Minna from her station. She was a practical woman who believed in survival. "Commander, even with our drives, 2,000 ships is too many. Running would teach them the wrong lesson," Bay replied. They need to understand that numbers do not matter against us. Today, we will teach them. She opened a channel to the other 4 ships in the convoy. All vessels, this is Commander Bay. Link your systems to the Silver Dawn. We are about to have company. The cargo ships responded quickly. Their drives connected through invisible threads of energy. 5 ships became one unit, thinking together, moving together. The convoy entered the nebula. Fleet Admiral Varth watched them come. His heart beat with excitement. Wait until they are fully inside. Then close the trap. The human ships passed through the outer edge of the gas clouds. They were surrounded by purple and gold. They were blind. Now, Varth ordered. 2,000 Valari warships activated their engines at once. They emerged from hiding places throughout the nebula. They formed a perfect sphere around the human convoy. There was no escape. Human vessels, Varth broadcast. You are surrounded. Surrender your ships and your technology, or you will be destroyed. Commander Bay's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired but not afraid. Fleet Admiral, I urge you to reconsider. We do not want to harm your people. Varth laughed loudly. Harm us? You have 5 ships. I have 2,000. You cannot possibly harm us. We could, Bay said quietly, but we choose not to. Please, turn around. Go home. Tell your council that war is not the answer. Open fire, Varth commanded. All ships, destroy them. 2,000 warships fired at once. The space inside the nebula lit up with energy beams, missiles, and plasma bursts. Enough firepower to crack a planet in half. Enough destruction to burn a moon to ash. The weapons passed through empty space. Varth stared at his screen in shock. The human ships were gone. Not destroyed. Gone. The readings showed nothing but empty vacuum where the convoy had been. Find them, he shouted. Where did they go? Admiral, his sensor officer said, his voice shaking. The human ships are now inside our formation. They are between our vessels. Varth spun around. Through the viewing ports, he could see them. The 5 human ships floated calmly in the middle of the Valari fleet. They had moved instantly from outside the sphere to inside it. His own ships surrounded them on all sides. But that also meant the Valari ships were pointing their weapons at each other. On the Silver Dawn, Lieutenant Han worked his controls with fast fingers. The phase shift worked perfectly, Commander. We existed in a probability state where their weapons could not touch us. I understood perhaps half of those words, Commander Bay admitted. But good work. She opened a channel to the Valari fleet. Fleet Admiral, your weapons cannot hit us. Your numbers mean nothing. We will not fire on you unless you attack again. Please, stand down. Varth's face twisted with rage. You think tricks will save you? All ships, close-range attack. Use physical weapons. Ram them if you must. The Valari ships began to move inward. They were too close for energy weapons now. They would crush the human vessels with their own hulls if necessary. Commander Bay sighed. Engineer Choi, activate the null field. Choi Mina hesitated. Commander, we have never used it against living beings before. I know, but we are out of options. Do it. Choi touched her controls. Something happened that the Valari would never forget. Every engine in the fleet stopped. Not exploded. Not damaged. Stopped. The energy simply drained away from 2,000 ships at once. Vessels that had been accelerating toward the humans now drifted helplessly in space. Their lights flickered. Their weapons went dark. Their crews floated in sudden silence. Fleet Admiral Varth stared at his dead controls. His bridge was lit only by emergency lights. His officers sat frozen at their stations. The great flagship of the Valari Empire was nothing more than a metal box floating in space. What did you do? He whispered. Commander Bay's face appeared on the emergency screen. The human ships were now the only source of power in the entire nebula. We removed the energy from your ships, she explained. Not destroyed. Removed. Your vessels are undamaged. Your crews are unharmed. But you cannot move or fight until we give your power back. That is impossible, Voreth said. His voice was hollow. Energy cannot simply be removed. Your understanding of physics says it cannot, Bay agreed. But as your council was told, we have discovered laws you did not know existed. She paused. Fleet Admiral, I am going to make you an offer. We will restore power to any ship whose captain agrees to return home peacefully. Those who refuse will stay here until they change their minds. You cannot keep 2,000 ships prisoner. We do not want to. We want you to go home and tell your empire what happened here today. Tell them that we could have destroyed you. Tell them that we chose mercy instead. Bay's eyes were serious. Tell them that the next time might be different. Voreth stared at her for a long moment. His pride screamed at him to refuse. His anger demanded revenge. But his wisdom, what little he had, told him the truth. They had lost. Completely, without a single shot being fired in return. How do I know you will keep your word? He finally asked. Because unlike some species, they said gently, humans do not lie about matters of war and peace. If we say we will restore your power, we will. If we say we will let you go, we will. One by one, the Valari captains began sending surrender signals. They had families at home. They had lives they wanted to return to. Pride was not worth dying in the dark. Within an hour, more than 1,800 ships had agreed to leave. The Silver Dawn restored their power, and they turned toward home. They did not look back. Voreth was among the last to surrender. His flagship had been the pride of the fleet. Now it was just another powerless hulk begging for mercy. This is not over, he promised as his engines came back to life. The Empire will never forget this insult. We do not want you to forget, Commander Bay replied. We want you to learn. There is a difference. The Silver Dawn and its convoy watched as the last Valari ships disappeared into the nebula's glowing clouds. The trap had failed. 2,000 warships had been defeated without a single death. Lieutenant Han turned to his commander. Do you think they will listen? Do you think they will stop trying to fight us? Bay was quiet for a moment. Some will, some will not. The universe is full of beings who would rather die than change their minds. She looked out at the stars. But today, we gave them a chance. That is all we can do. The convoy continued on its journey. Behind them, the Charon Nebula glowed in silence. The birthplace of gods had just witnessed something new. The birth of understanding. Or perhaps, the birth of something worse. Only time would tell. 1 year had passed since the fleet's defeat in the Charon Nebula. 1 year since High Sovereign Kelveth had met secretly with the humans. 1 year since the Empire had begun to change. Not everyone welcomed the change. Councillor Dren had gathered supporters. He called Kelveth a traitor. He claimed the humans had corrupted the High Sovereign's mind. He demanded war, conquest, the complete destruction of humanity. For 3 months, he had waged a rebellion across 12 star systems. Valari fought Valari. Ships burned in the darkness between worlds. Thousands died. And then, one morning, it ended. Dren's own soldiers had turned against him. Not because the humans had intervened. Not because Kelveth had sent armies to crush the rebellion. The soldiers had simply decided, on their own, that they were tired of fighting. They chose hope over fear. Now Dren sat in the Grand Chamber, stripped of his rank, watching everything he had feared come true. But not in the way he had expected. Ambassador Park Daiho stood at the center of the room. He was no longer a captain. After the first contact, he had been chosen to represent humanity to the Volari. He had spent the past year learning their language, their customs, their history. He had earned their respect, if not their love. "High Sovereign," Park said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for allowing me to speak today." Kelveth nodded from his throne. He looked different than he had a year ago. His scales had grown even more gray, but his eyes were brighter. He seemed less burdened, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "You may speak, Ambassador. The council will hear you." Park turned to address the assembled counselors. Many still looked at him with suspicion, some with open hatred, but others watched with curiosity, even hope. "1 year ago, our species met for the first time," Park began. "It was not a peaceful meeting. You saw us as threats. We saw you as potential enemies. Fear ruled both sides." He paused, letting his words settle. "But fear is not destiny. Fear is a starting point, not an ending. Over this past year, we have talked. We have argued. We have disagreed about many things. But we have also learned from each other." Park touched a control, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a station orbiting a distant star. The station was large, combining Volari and human designs. It was beautiful, a symbol of two species working together. "This is Research Station Unity," Park explained. "It opened 3 months ago. Today, 100 Volari scientists work alongside 100 human engineers. They are studying the reality drive together. They are sharing knowledge that both species kept secret for generations." Counselor Sivan stood up. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Ambassador, what have they discovered?" "Something wonderful," Park replied. "Our drive works because reality is flexible. But we never understood why it was flexible. Your scientists have helped us develop new theories. They believe that the universe is not just a story being told. It is a story that wants to be told differently. It is waiting for beings like us to help write the next chapter." Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was dangerous talk. It suggested that the universe was not a fixed machine, but a living thing that could be changed. For the Volari, this was terrifying. For some of them, it was also beautiful. Admiral Yoon Ji-young stepped forward to stand beside Park. She wore a formal uniform now, decorated with both human and Volari symbols of honor. "High Sovereign, I have an announcement to make," she said. "After months of joint research, we have achieved something remarkable. We have found a way to share the reality drive safely." The chamber erupted in noise. Some counselors shouted in anger. Others cried out with joy. Dren, still sitting in his prisoner's chair, went pale with shock. "Share it?" One counselor demanded. "You would give us this technology?" "Yes," Yoon confirmed, "but with conditions. The drive must never be used as a weapon. Ships equipped with it must carry crews from both species. And every journey must be logged and reviewed to ensure the technology is not misused." "These are acceptable conditions," Kelva said before anyone else could object. He rose from his throne, his whole body straightening with effort. "I accept them on behalf of the Volari people." Dren finally spoke. His voice was broken, defeated. "You are giving away our future. You are surrendering everything we built." Kelveth looked at him sadly. "No, Dren, I am building something new. The Empire has stood for 12,000 years. It has conquered and controlled and feared. But it has never grown. It has never changed. It has never become more than it was." He turned to face the entire chamber. "I do not want to rule an empire anymore. I want to lead a commonwealth. A partnership of equals working together toward a future none of us can imagine alone." The chamber fell silent. This was the moment. Everything hung in the balance. Park Dae-ho watched the Volari counselors carefully. He could see the fear in their eyes. Fear of change. Fear of the unknown. Fear of trusting species they had spent 12,000 years conquering. But he could also see something else. Hope. Curiosity. The faint, fragile beginning of wonder. One by one, the counselors began to nod. First Stephen, who had always valued knowledge over power. Then others, young and old, military and civilian. They nodded because they were tired of fear. They nodded because they wanted something more. Not all of them agreed. Some sat in stubborn silence. Some walked out of the chamber in anger. But enough remained. Enough chose hope. Kelvith turned to Park. "Ambassador, I believe we have work to do." Park smiled. It was a genuine smile, full of warmth and wonder. "Yes, High Sovereign. We do." The ceremony continued for several more hours. Treaties were signed. Promises were made. The foundations of a new relationship were laid in words and symbols. But the moment that everyone would remember happened at the end. A Valar child had somehow wandered into the Grand Chamber. She was young, perhaps only 10 years, with bright blue scales and curious eyes. She walked past the guards, past the counselors, right up to where Admiral Yoon was standing. "Excuse me," the child said in careful human language. She had been learning it in school. "Are you from Earth?" Yoon knelt down to meet her eyes. "Yes, I am. What does Earth look like?" Yoon thought for a moment. How could she describe her homeworld? The blue oceans and green forests? The cities that stretched toward the sky? The mountains and deserts and endless variety of life? "It is beautiful," she finally said. "And strange. And full of surprises. Just like the universe." The child's eyes grew wide. "I would like to see it someday." Yoon stood up and looked at High Sovereign Kelvith. He nodded slowly, understanding what she was about to offer. "Would you like to come with me?" Yoon asked the child. "I am returning home soon. You could be the first Valari to see Earth." The child's mother stepped forward from the crowd, her face torn between fear and hope. She looked at her daughter, at the human admiral, at the High Sovereign watching them all. "Can I, Mother?" the child asked. "Can I go?" Her mother was silent for a long moment. Then she knelt down and embraced her daughter tightly. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, you can go." The chamber broke into applause. Not the formal, polite applause of diplomacy. Real applause, full of emotion and relief and joy. Outside the Grand Chamber, 2 ships waited on the landing platform. One was Valari, sleek and elegant. The other was human, plain and gray. They would fly together toward a small blue planet on the far side of the galaxy. Ambassador Park stood beside Admiral Yoon as they watched the child board the human ship, holding her mother's hand. "Do you think this will last?" Park asked quietly. "Peace between our species?" Yoon shook her head. "I do not know. There will be problems, misunderstandings, moments when old fears return." She paused, watching the child press her face against the ship's window, eager to see the stars. But today, a child asked to see Earth, and her mother said yes. That is more than we could have hoped for. The ships lifted off together. They rose through the atmosphere of the Valari homeworld, past the orbital stations and defense platforms, out into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the Empire trembled. Not with fear this time, with possibility. The universe stretched out before them, vast and strange and waiting to be written. 2 species who had met as enemies now flew together as partners. They did not know what the future held. They did not know what challenges awaited them. But they knew one thing for certain. They would face it together. And that made all the difference. The Empire trembled. Humanity's ship defied the laws of physics. Part 4. The truth behind the drive. The station called Crossroads floated in neutral space, far from any empire's territory. It was old, built by a species that no longer existed. Now it served as a meeting place for beings who could not meet anywhere else. High Sovereign Kelveth had traveled here in secret. He had told no one, not even his most trusted advisors. If Councillor Dren discovered this meeting, it would mean civil war. But Kelveth was old, and old beings cared more about truth than about politics. The human delegation was already waiting when he arrived. There were 3 of them. Captain Shinbyo Young stood guard near the door. She was a soldier, tall for a human, with watchful eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Kwan Taehyun sat at the table, a thin man with gray hair and glasses that rested on his nose. And Science Officer Melith sat beside him, looking nervous and excited at the same time. Kelveth paused when he saw Melith. "You are here." "High Sovereign." Melith bowed her head. "I apologize for my deception, but I needed to know the truth. Our empire has built everything on our understanding of physics. If that understanding is wrong, I needed to hear it myself." Kelveth considered this for a moment, then nodded. He had always liked Melith. She valued truth above career. In the empire, that was rare. He sat down across from Dr. Kwan. "You are one of the humans who created this drive technology?" "I am one of the people who discovered it," Kwan corrected gently. "We did not create it. We found it. Explain the difference." Kwan leaned back in his chair. He looked tired, like a man who had explained the same thing many times and was never believed. "High Sovereign, what do you know about the nature of reality?" Kelvath's scales shifted with irritation. "I am not here for philosophy lessons. This is not philosophy. This is physics." Kwan touched the device on the table, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a simple image, a single point of light in darkness. "What is this?" "A star," Kelveth answered. "Correct. Now watch." The hologram changed. The point of light became a blur. It existed in one place, then another, then many places at once. "What is this?" Melith leaned forward with excitement. "It is the same star, but viewed through a probability lens. This is basic quantum mechanics. At very small scales, matter exists in multiple states until observed." "Yes," Kwan agreed. "But here is what we discovered." The hologram changed again. The blur collapsed into a single point, but now it was in a completely different location. At very large scales, under certain conditions, the same rules apply. Kelveth stared at the hologram. "You are saying that your ships use quantum effects at a large scale? That you can exist in multiple places at once?" "More than that." Kwan's eyes grew distant, lost in memory. "We discovered that the universe is not solid. It is not fixed. It is more like a story being told. The words on the page can be rearranged. The chapters can be rewritten. Reality is flexible if you know how to touch it." "That is insane," Kelveth said flatly. "Yes," Kwan agreed. "We thought so too. For decades, we argued about it. Scientists destroyed their careers defending this idea. Others destroyed their careers attacking it. We nearly abandoned the research entirely. What changed?" Kwan's face became sad. "Earth was dying. Our home world. We had poisoned our air, our water, our soil. Billions were starving. Wars broke out everywhere. We were facing extinction." He paused. "When you are desperate enough, you try things that seem insane, because doing nothing means certain death." Melith spoke up. "But how did you make the connection? How did you go from quantum theory to a working drive?" "Honestly, we do not fully know." Kwan shook his head. "We ran thousands of experiments. Most failed. Some killed people. One young engineer made a calculation error that should have destroyed the laboratory. Instead, the laboratory moved. Not the equipment inside it. The entire building. It existed on one street, and then it existed on another street 10 kilometers away. That is how you discovered it? By accident? By accident, Quan confirmed. The engineer thought she had made a terrible mistake. She spent weeks crying, convinced she had broken reality. Instead, she had saved our species. Kelveth sat in silence for a long moment. His old mind struggled to accept what he was hearing. The Valari had spent 12,000 years building their understanding of the universe. They had mapped every law, mastered every force. They believed they understood everything. But these humans, these primitive creatures from a dying world, had stumbled onto something completely new. Why did you not use this power to conquer? Kelveth finally asked. You could rule the galaxy. You could destroy any enemy. Why do you offer friendship instead of demanding surrender? Quan looked at him with genuine confusion. Why would we want to conquer? For power. Safety. For control. Power is a burden. Safety through conquest is an illusion. And control? Quan smiled sadly. We spent thousands of years trying to control our own planet. We nearly destroyed it. We learned that control is the enemy of growth. Captain Shin spoke from her position by the door. High Sovereign, humanity's history is a long list of empires that rose and fell. Every one of them thought they were eternal. Every one of them believed that power was the answer. Every one of them was wrong. Kelveth turned to look at her. And you believe you are different? We believe we have learned, Shin replied. We have seen what conquest brings. We have paid for that knowledge with rivers of blood. We have no desire to repeat those mistakes. Meleth touched Kelveth's arm gently. High Sovereign, I believe them. I have studied their science. It is not complete, as they admit, but it is honest. They truly do not fully understand what they have found, and they truly do not want to use it for war. Kelveth looked at her. Then, why did they show us their power? Why did they humiliate Vareth's fleet? To survive, Quan answered simply. To show you that war was not worth fighting. To prove that you could not win by force, so that perhaps you would try a different path. And what path is that? Cooperation, partnership, learning together instead of conquering each other. Quan leaned forward earnestly. High Sovereign, the universe is vast and strange. Our discovery proves that we do not understand it as well as we thought. Neither humans nor Valari have all the answers. But together, we might find more. Kelveth closed his ancient eyes. He thought about his empire. 12,000 years of history. Countless conquered species. A whole galaxy under their control. And what had it given them? Fear. Always fear. Fear of rebellion. Fear of enemies. Fear of the unknown. The empire had grown powerful, but it had never grown wise. It had conquered everything except its own terror of what it could not control. Now these humans offered something different. Something frightening but also wonderful. They offered change. If I return to my council and propose peace, Kelveth said slowly, Councillor Dren will try to overthrow me. He will claim I have been corrupted by the humans. He will start a civil war. Perhaps, Quan acknowledged. Change is always dangerous. But staying the same is also dangerous. The question is, which danger is worth facing? Kelveth opened his eyes. He looked at the human scientist, this frail creature from a dying world who had helped save his species by accident. I am 700 years old, Kelveth said. I have ruled for 3 centuries. I have always known what to do. He paused. For the first time in my life, I do not know. But I think that might be a good thing. He stood up slowly, his ancient joints creaking. I will return to my empire. I will think about what you have told me. I make no promises. We ask for none, Quan replied. "Only that you consider a different path." Kelvith nodded once and walked toward the door. He paused beside Captain Shin. "Your species frightens me," he admitted. "Not because of your technology, because of what you represent. You are proof that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined, and that the Empire might not be the center of everything after all." Shin bowed her head slightly. "Maybe that is not something to fear. Maybe that is something to celebrate." Kelvith left the station without another word. His shuttle carried him back through the stars toward his waiting Empire dot behind him. The humans watched him go. "Do you think he will choose peace?" Malith asked. Quan shook his head slowly. "I do not know. But for the first time, he's asking himself the right questions. That is more than we could have hoped for." Outside the station windows, the stars burned in eternal silence. They did not care about empires or politics or the fears of mortal beings. They simply existed, as they always had. But somewhere among those stars, an old emperor was beginning to dream of a different future, and that, perhaps, was enough.